Good afternoon, and thank you, Lockie, for the introduction. And thanks to Centreport for having us here. We selected this site as it was the scene of the IREX pyramid scheme. And this was one of the two large spaces, right all the way to the far end, rented by Project IREX, and by contrast, the new ferry holdings office is so small that there isn't room to host you here. Now, because we have shifted from wasteful spending to waste not, want not, this is going to be a very, very short speech, but dealing with the facts. It's good to see various leaders here today, including rail and maritime unions, iwi and the chairs, chief executives and team members of Centreport, Port Marlborough and KiwiRail. These ferries are for all New Zealanders, and we appreciate the support for plain common sense. Marlborough Mayor Nadine Taylor, Wellington Mayor Andrew Little, Greater Wellington Chair Darren Ponter, welcome and thank you for being here. Chris McKenzie, Heather Simpson, Greg Lowe, Catherine Rich, Captain Ian McLeod, and the entire Ferry Holdings team, a genuine thank you. New Zealand owes you a serious debt of gratitude. And thanks extends to the pragmatists from Centreport, Port Marlborough and KiwiRail too. To the teams gathered today, a genuine heartfelt thank you for your work. One's reputation is the beneficiary of your work. These teams picked up a clarion call for fiscal discipline without compromising on the ships and infrastructure New Zealanders want and need. At our behest and then with Cabinet support, we safeguarded the long-term future of the Interislander, preserved rail on the Strait and saved the taxpayer billions. In fact, we have saved the taxpayer $2.3 billion. One more time. We have saved the taxpayer $2.3 billion. Ferry Holdings, the ports and KiwiRail have agreed to the program of work to be delivered by 2029. The program will be less than $2 billion, but the taxpayer's contribution is within the $1.7 billion Cabinet allocated when we started our no-nonsense ferry solution. That is $2.3 billion less than the $4 billion cost and rising explosion that Treasury warned of in 2023, after project managers pushed egregious, wasteful and unnecessary scope onto the infrastructure program. So we're ordering two ferries, but the total cost was infrastructure 80% and more. And before the apologists start saying the cancelled ferries would have been here in 2026, the answer is this. No major construction contracts were entered into under IREX, but they still said they would complete the work in 2026 within 2 years. They were in la-la land. It could not be done, and we would have ended up just like what's happening in Tasmania, where ferries arrived long before the infrastructure was ready. The Tasmanian devil was in the detail all along. Instead, we have brought this back to the program we agreed in 2020, before the Labour Party went away with the ferries, so to speak. Two new ferries replacing infrastructure where it is needed, but keeping infrastructure where it can be kept, with 3 years of build program. We will rebuild the marine infrastructure in Picton and Wellington, but keep the assets that still have life left in them, and make use of the yards, buildings and road and rail infrastructure, and that saves billions. We know this will work because the idea came from the Ships Masters Union and has been assiduously tested by the ports. People in the practical business of ship and freight movement, not boffins and bean counters. Ask yourself, who's more likely to deliver value for money, safe services and a viable business? The people whose livelihoods are on the line, or the expensive contractors who hijack the IREX project? This is not a free-for-all either. Interislander is a commercial business operating in a competitive market. Funding put in by the ports and ferry holdings will be recovered over the 30-year life of the ferry and infrastructure assets through port fees paid by Interislander revenue. Interislander revenue will also need to build sufficient reserves to buy new ferries in 30 years. When this basic principle of business is taken into account, it brings into stark relief why a no-nonsense ferry solution is the only way forward. If we lumped in high cost, like they sought to do in IREX, then it will ultimately flow on to New Zealanders through higher inter-islander fares. By keeping costs low, we have saved the Interislander for road and rail and kept costs to an economic minimum for you, the consumer. Oh, and by the way, that is why we are staying in Picton and not going to Clifford Bay. Their own estimates, that's Clifford Bay, say their project will cost $900 million, while works in Picton are a bit over $500 million in our calculations. The higher the cost, the more expensive the Interislander ticket. Instead, we thank the two ports for their willingness and straightforward approaches. We know that this attitude will be expected from the major construction contractors who will soon be joining this project. Program and cost efficiency will win those construction contracts. So put your best foot forward if you're one of them. And we are still buying what New Zealanders want, 2 new ferries. We are buying exactly the type of ferries people want, big enough to carry freight and families for the next 30 years, designed for comfort and freight capacity, and meeting modern safety requirements. We will enter a new era of ship quality on the Cook Strait with these new ferries. They will have road and rail decks. We have never wavered in our support for rail. It is not an anti-truck proposition. It is simply plain common sense. If rail cannot haul heavy industries, then thousands of trucks as heavy as a small house would. More of those means more trucks adding road costs, road works, and the devil in New Zealand, road cones. We are about to balance road and rail. We're about common sense, using what New Zealanders built to benefit New Zealanders, not leaving rail to waste on the side of the road. And the fixed price for these 2 ferries is $596 million. Just a fraction more than the cancelled ferries with its famously good price. Not hundreds of millions, more as naysayers have been shouting from mouths and months and across Parliament and having these guys in the press gallery printing the rubbish. One more time, it's going to cost $596 million. Now, we have just also secured a shipbuilder of serious quality. Guangzhou Shipyard International is the largest modern integrated shipbuilding enterprise in southern China. They received the highest overall rating through Ferry Holdings' competitive tender process, impressing with their technical expertise and ability to deliver on time and on budget. Next week we will travel to Guangzhou with the Ferry Holdings Chair and Ships Program Director to acknowledge this significant agreement, not just between the shipyard and Ferry Holdings, but also as a significant contribution to economic relations with China. Finally, we intend to move forward. Despite the risible attempt to turn IREX into a pathway to prosperity for the consultant class, hijacking a project founded on prudency in 2020, and I remember it was May, and the deal was $401 million for 2 ferries. We saw through them, we kicked them out, and we took control again. We saved $2.3 billion in the process, retained rail ferries, and have now secured the ferry contract and the path to completion in 2029. We did what we said we would do. Work has already started. Rail retired the Aratere, making way for the demolition and rebuild work. Centrepoint has already built the laydown area and they have a barge on site. Port Marlborough is about to start demolition works on the Aratere link span to make way for the new infrastructure. This is a program with real energy and excitement behind it. That focus will carry the day because of this occasion, and on this event we're talking about common sense, and common sense won. We are, after all, charting the same course as those who came before us, albeit on new tides and with the pragmatists at the helm. Once again, thank you very much for your patience. Any questions?
What sort of experience will New Zealanders who ride on these new ferries, what sort of experience will they have?
Well, first of all, they're much safer. They're much better empowered. They've got more thrusters. They've got far greater security and a capacity to turn home in times of a mistake. But they'll have far more comfortable everything, including for children as well. There'll be serious areas that I think we're going to be very, very impressed by.
Why do you say that you're saving taxpayers $2.3 billion, yet you're not taking into account the $670 million that was wasted by cancelling IREX?
Well, if you can't work out that IREX cost was going to be less than 20% of the total cost, so you're off to buy 2 new ferries, then all of a sudden people see enormous chance to rot the taxpayer with political help. And so it would have been over 80% would have been on that. That's why we can make those savings. And I've got no doubt that 101 accountancy will help you through it if you want me to.
Surely their sunk cost should go on top of this cost in terms of the total cost of taxpayers, right? Taxpayers do have to pay.
No, we're not paying cost for stupidity. That's what you want me to do.
But if you add the same costs to the new total, the 1.86 billion, it comes to about 2.5 billion. When the cost of IREX at 7.23 was 2.6 billion. So how are you saving the tax?
No, it was never 2.6 billion. I've got all the reports from Treasury and their own advisors saying it was going to blow out completely. Treasury, in fact, got to 4.2 billion. I'm being modest by saying 4 billion.
It would have blown out to 4 billion if you had done nothing, correct? If the government had done nothing about IREX.
No, you don't get it. I don't know why you're trying to defend the indefensible. They were sent to buy 2 ferries by me at the time. It was in May 2020. It was $401 million for new ferries. And then all of a sudden, they go out, increase the size massively, just like Tasmania. Have you got any example of what went wrong and what was going wrong in New Zealand? Tasmania is right there before your eyes. They got the 2 ferries, and guess what? The hulls don't fit anymore either. They've got no infrastructure, just like we would never have had in 2026, which is the promise that other people are making, and some of you are repeating mistakenly.
How soon are you that this will be the final cost? And the costs will not escalate further?
Because they've got the right team on the job, and they're pretty tough. Otherwise, I never got them. And they got a record for keeping their eye on these matters. I've got enormous confidence in this team, and I think the country will have reason to be enormously grateful to them when it's all over.
And so Ferry Holdings is yet to settle contracts with the 2 ports involved, is that right?
Yeah?
And they're yet to settle contracts with construction firms.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So how can you be sure of the quantum of the cost there?
Because those are their writing instructions. The frivolous borrow and hope days are over.
But what if
I might apply it to the media of this country as well.
they say we can't get what we need for this cost?
Big pardon?
What if they come back to you and they say we can't get what we need for this cost?
Well, we'll go to another contractor. That's how the world works.
So this is it.
Yeah, this is it. We expect to make greater savings than this. I'm just being modest at the moment.
How convinced are you of the Wellington construction costs in particular? Because it sounds like initially it was thought that more could be reused, but now there needs to be more new infrastructure in Wellington. So presumably the cost of that has already increased over the course of this year.
Yes, but because we're using a lot of it and not building a whole new infrastructure, the costs are far less than they would have been. Well, that's leaving out other stuff.
Given the contracts haven't been signed for the full site infrastructure, how can you be confident that the project as a whole will be able to be delivered by 2029?
Because that's the way it was in Vogel's time when he went out there and built all those railways in 10 years, more than the next 130 years. We're getting our mojo back. We're going to go out there and do this over and over again. I can't wait for the next project.
How are ports going to be paying for this? Are you concerned about costs being passed on to users or ratepayers?
Well, but costs are always going to be passed on to users. That's part of the commercial contract here. But fair costs, not bloated costs.
So are you expecting that in 30 years' time, Interislander will be paying out of their own coffers for this rather than the government doing what they are at the moment, essentially?
Yeah, and the excellent thing about this boats will still be resaleable at a far greater value. But they are the latest, best technology there is, approved by international standards to the max. So I'm very confident about that.
It says that taxpayers will pay less than $1.7 billion. Can you be specific about how much specifically taxpayers will be paying for this?
I just told you.
What was that?
The program will be less than $2 billion, but the taxpayer contribution is within the $1.7 billion cabinet allocated. The taxpayer contribution is within the $1.7 billion cabinet allocated when we started our no-nonsense ferry solution.
But we're looking for the specific figure. You're saying that it's within a certain envelope. We're looking for the specific.
Oh, you want us to know, but it's a fraction less than $1.7 billion. Is that what you're picking? Is that what you're nitpicking over? You want to know this bit of fraction less than 1.7 billion? You're not happy with the 1.7 billion insurance. Already? Well, why didn't you ask the previous crowd when they were there? I never heard you ask one question when they were there, blowing it out to 4.2 billion. What's your excuse for that?
The Labor Party put out a statement, that's really watching your announcement. They say that you've failed to deliver a better ferry deal, that you've produced smaller and more expensive ferries, considering that the last ferries we acquired, and they're focusing on the ferries and on portside infrastructure, were contracted for 551 million, and you're sweeping the sunk costs under the rug.
Well, why would you be wasting this press time to repeat absolute utter drivel when I've just given you the figures? What is wrong with you guys? Now, their spokesperson was saying the ferry's going to cost 1.4 billion. That's what he did say. And that's what you published, and I've just told you today that's a lie. I'll give you the exact figure. It's almost $1 billion less than he said.
You are sweeping the 660 million under the rug.
No, that's the failed question you asked about 3 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I got bad news for you guys. I got bad news for you guys. We've done the accountancy and we're accurate here.
Do you have a more specific timeline on when it will be operational? Do you know when 2029 the ferries will be here?
One will be early and one will be by the end of the year. Well, I can't say it's going to be on New Year's Day in 2029, but it'll be early in the year.
And how soon does construction start? When you go to the shipyard, will you get to see any of the work underway?
I'll get to see some of the plans underway, yes.
Just going back to
You
the
guarantee the public it's not going to balloon like the last one did. It's not going to go a bit.
No, because we don't sign contracts like that. That's why we went to 6 companies, can't tell you the names because the process is still going on, and they come up as the best and recommended to us because of their significant capacity in both doing it and on time.
Was cost a big factor in choosing the shipyard?
Well, take a wild guess. Of course it was.
And presumably it did cost more than the other shipyards there.
Well, how can you possibly presume that when the rest didn't win the tender? I mean, this is economics 101, guys.
Just going back to the costs being passed on, will any of this be reported by Wellington or Marlborough freight rates?
Oh, no, well, Marlborough is making a contribution. It's a significant one. And so will Wellington, but all within their capacity. All right. Thank you very, very much.